Good morning. Welcome to our 2020 PBIS webinar conference. I think we are on webinar number 8 for the month of June. We are so excited to have you. This webinar conference is being presented by the West Virginia Behavior Mental Health Technical Assistance Center, and the TA Center is a collaboration between the West Virginia Autism Training Center at Marshall University and the West Virginia Department of Education's Office of Special Education and Student Support. This webinar conference is happening because we had to cancel our annual conference, which would have been happening today, actually. But we have asked our presenters, and they have agreed to present in this on this platform, and we're so happy that we can go ahead and share this content with you. A few housekeeping things. We will be keeping everybody on mute, except for the presenters, of course. So that way we can have a clear recording of what's going on. This recording will be put up on our YouTube channel, which you can go to YouTube and go to WVBMHTAC and see all of our past webinars and any future webinars that we'll be adding there. It will also be going on our Facebook page, which is WVPBIS. We would like to let you know that at the end of this, there will be a sign-in link that will allow you to give us your name, your email, your county, provide us some feedback, and that will be a place that you can put any questions you might have for the presenters. What's happening is that we're collecting all that data. If counties are asking, we are providing verification. If you fill out that link after you press submit, there will be a page that you can either screenshot or print off that would be an attendance verification. Then we will have that documentation as well, but that's also how we can get questions to the presenter so you can get answers. I also want to talk to you a little bit about today. I'm going to be putting some links in the chat, and I want to talk to you a little bit about West Virginia ABLE. West Virginia ABLE typically comes to our conferences in our academies, and they provide information about the work that they do. And we wanted to still be able to share that information with you. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about West Virginia ABLE, and then at different times throughout our webinar, I'll be adding links into the chat box. I'll also be adding links for our emails and for TA Center specific information as well. So I'm going to tell you about West Virginia ABLE. West Virginia ABLE is a savings and investment plan designed to give people with disabilities more independence and financial security. With West Virginia ABLE, individuals with disabilities can save and invest well above the $2,000 limit without being at risk for losing eligibility for public benefit programs such as Medicaid and supplemental security income. This is really important because before West Virginia ABLE came about, individuals receiving Social Security income and Medicaid were not permitted to save more than $2,000 without being at risk for losing those public benefits. Now, with ABLE, individuals with a disability may save and invest well above this limit and still maintain their benefits. West Virginia ABLE is West Virginia's program offering savings accounts to eligible individuals in West Virginia. But what we need is your help. We need your help to inform parents with children that have disability that West Virginia ABLE exists. And that it can provide life-changing benefits for them. So less than 1% of eligible individuals actually own an ABLE savings account. West Virginia ABLE is still fairly new, and we're working hard to get the word out to inform eligible individuals that West Virginia ABLE exists, but your help is needed. As stated by the West Virginia Disability Rights Legal Director, the ABLE legislation is one of the most important pieces of legislation we've seen in the last 20 years for individuals with a disability. So what we want, we know we have a very of teachers, of school psychologists, of special ed directors, whoever may be sitting in our webinar. We want to make sure that you have knowledge about West Virginia ABLE. I'm going to send you some links so you can be able to share that with your parents and other individuals that you work with. It's a great program that provides a lot of support for individuals with disabilities, and we're always happy to support them. Now let's get started about today's event. You can't see them because they're having some technology issues, but today we have Aaron Day and Shakaya Baker from Lost Creek Elementary School. Lost Creek's PBIS leadership team is excited to present and share their model school journey and how they're using Dojo to streamline their data. They work at Lost Creek Elementary School under the leadership of Mrs. Laura Trent, and the team leader is Ms. Erin Day, and the data specialist is Ms. Shakaya Baker. Lost Creek has been building their program since 2015, and the three of them have worked together on this team from its start 5 years ago. Through trainings, conferences, and collaborations with coaches from our county's Board of Education, WVPBIS, and the ATC, they have built and maintained a strong school-wide program with great successes for our staff, school community, and students. And we love working with Lost Creek. They're one of our first West Virginia Tier 1 model schools. They do amazing work, and we're excited to hear what they have to share with us. So Erin and Shakaya, you guys are up.
All right, thanks, Alyssa. We're really excited to be able to share this with all of you and thankful that you're here with us today. So our presentation is the push of a button using Class Dojo to streamline school data. So before we get started, just a little bit about who we are. We are located in Harrison County in Lost Creek, West Virginia. We're a small school with a little under 200 students currently enrolled for the past year in grades preschool through 5th grade. And on the left, there's a picture of our staff, and that is everybody in our school, including administration, teachers, and service personnel. So that's been a big part of our PBIS program, is really getting everybody involved because there aren't many of us. So it really takes the whole village to pull this off for us. As Alicia said, we were named a Tier 1 model school for the 2019-2020 school year. And this opened our doors to other schools and programs that were starting PBIS or trying to refresh their own program at their schools to allow them to come visit our site and sit down and talk with us about some struggles they were facing, about our journey, and getting everybody on the same track. So that's been a really wonderful experience for us, and we're excited to extend that into next year as well. So the reason we chose to do this presentation is that implementing Class Dojo for our data was a big change for us, and we'll get into a lot of the details of that throughout this hour. But the first thing we did was look at our TFI. That's something that should be completed at least yearly with your team and your program. And I'm not going to read all of these little pieces, but these were some major parts of our TFI that drove us to the decision to use Class Dojo, because our TFI was leading our action plan, and in our action plan, we knew we needed to address all of these things. And Class Dojo seemed to be the answer for us for all of that. So now Shakaya is going to talk for a minute about why we chose Class Dojo.
We noticed we had teachers using different apps for communication. And as a PBIS team, we were looking for an app to continue communication as well as streamline our data for our program. Class Dojo is 100% free, and that was huge. Everything you love was in one place. You can connect with families, create positive classrooms, and share student learning. Some of the features of Class Dojo, we were able to communicate with families connected to your class through a class story, as well as communicate with families who are connected to the school through a school story. It's sort of like Facebook when you post to your page or whatever. You can post photos, activities, field trips, anchor charts, reminders, any important information that you need to communicate with your school family or even just your classroom. This was very useful tool while we were doing remote learning. Class Dojo also has student portfolios, and through these portfolios, you can access each individual student's portfolio within the class. It lets students share their work. Parents and teachers can view these, and they also follow students year to year. The messaging feature was huge. It allows you to build one-to-one connection with families. This allows instant communication between the teacher and family so everyone stays connected. Another feature is it does have a translations feature, which allows you to communicate with families regardless of the language that's spoken in the home. The toolkit is very useful and has options for classroom management, so you can stay organized and on task. There are social emotional learning videos and activities for a variety of topics. We have used these school-wide during our Monday morning roundup. This is a time where we meet as a whole school to teach a topic of the week, which is followed up in the classroom with the teacher. Topics include growth mindset, empathy, mindfulness, and many more. This has been a great resource for us. The instant feedback has been the most valuable part of Class Dojo for our PBIS program to encourage positive classroom skills and behavior. And Erin will be discussing this in more detail in just a few.
So when we were looking for an app to use, like Shakaya said, we had several teachers using different apps, and we wanted to get everybody on the same page, not only for fidelity to our program, but for convenience to parents as well. So we did a little bit of research, and Class Dojo does have information on their website about how their app and their website connects directly to PBIS. So you can see in the red box, there are three main points where that it helps create a positive school culture. You can capture and share important data for PBIS, and you can improve family engagement. And all of those were really important things to on our action plan as a result of our TFI. So we were confident that Class Dojo would be a good fit for our program and for our needs and for our school.
Like Erin said, this has been a huge journey. Class Dojo has even been a journey for us. It took us several years to get to where we are now. The first year, we used Class Dojo for positive feedback only, and this was shared with our families because it was positive. This is what we use for our acknowledgement for positive classroom behavior in place of tickets. There are things you can do like random drawing through the toolkit for rewards or whatever you do in your classroom. So the second year, we wanted to have all of our data in one place so it could be easily accessible. We decided that year to only use Class Dojo for needs work only because it was only for data purposes, and we chose not to share this with families. We didn't want negative communication with our families. Erin will talk about that more in detail in a few as well. And then the third year, and now for a few years, we've used it for both positive and needs work. This took some time to figure out if we could work it where parents were seeing the right things, that our positives were weighing our negatives, and so on. But this, we definitely share this with families, and it's accessed as needed by our PBIS team. The more we have used it, the more it has strengthened our program.
And she explained that really well, but I do want to add in quickly that we're sharing our journey with you to help explain it in a little more detail and help you learn from our experience. So splitting it up over this length amount of time was not necessary to your program. It was something new for us, and it was a transition that we wanted to make sure that we were working through all the pieces. So hopefully the information we're sharing with you today will help eliminate that need a little bit for you to spend so much time working through it. But with everything, take it one step at a time and do it at a pace that makes sense for you and for your staff and your families. So an important part for us and for every PBIS program is separating the negative from the positive. I know that was a struggle when our school transitioned into becoming a PBIS school, mostly because it was something we didn't understand the right way for a while. So getting this system into place was our main focus for a while. So before we used Dojo, if you look on the left side of your screen, we used tickets for our acknowledgements for our students. I know a lot of schools use a lot of different things. That's just something we chose as a staff. So we handed out tickets to acknowledge the positive behaviors we wanted to reinforce with our kids at our school. We also created an infraction sheet, which is on the left at the top, to track unwanted behaviors. This was created from our discipline data that we had from our office discipline referrals. We gathered that data and we looked at the behaviors we saw the most, and that were things we wanted to fix. So as a staff, as a school, we all tracked these unwanted behaviors on an infraction sheet. What we noticed was that this wasn't done fairly across the school and across staff members, and that wasn't resulting from anybody not doing it correctly. It was, the reality is we're all human and we all have different tolerance levels and different expectations. So we knew we needed to remedy that issue. So in the center of your screen, you'll see our Lost Creek behavior management hierarchy. And we created this to ensure that behaviors were managed fairly across the school and with every staff member. And I'm not going to read through every detail of that, but that is a resource that I sent out for us to share with you, that as well as our infraction sheet, if it would be something that your school is interested in using or looking at in a little bit more detail. But basically, this hierarchy breaks down how to handle an unwanted behavior to make sure it's done fairly and that infractions weren't just given out freely for kids. Because the reality is we want to focus more on incentivizing positive behaviors instead of focusing on our negative ones. And then on the right, you can see just that we transitioned over to Class Dojo. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about how we replaced those things. So how did this work for us? In Class Dojo, when you choose a student to give feedback, you can choose positive, which Shakaya said that we only did that the first year. So the first thing we did was replace our tickets with positive points. And this is just an example of my classroom. Every teacher was given the freedom to create the positive points for the things they wanted to reinforce in their classroom. So things like following directions, being a good friend, working hard, and then our 3 school expectations of be safe, be respectful, be responsible. So really what we focused on was making sure teachers were giving these out for the things you need to look for in your specific classroom. And then the next step was adding in the feature of needs work. So these are negative points on Class Dojo. And like Shakaya said, we worked really hard to take away that stigma of the word negative. And I'll get into that a little bit more here in a minute. They can be weighted how you choose, but for our data purposes, we made them negative points. And I will say before I talk more, because this was something we were really concerned about, these negative points do not take away any of the positive points that the students earn. All it does is give you information in your data for student behavior. So for example, if I had a child with 6 positive points because they worked hard, they were being responsible, they were doing what they were supposed to do, and then they did receive an infraction and had a negative point, they would still have 6 positive points for the day. It would be like getting their 6 tickets, and we don't take those away from them when there's an unwanted behavior. So that was a piece we didn't know about until we dug into it. But it's really important for us to share with you that the negative doesn't negate anything that they have. So what we did was we did ask all of our staff members to set up their needs work point to align directly with our infraction sheet, because we already had that data in paper form, and we wanted to be able to have the same data digitally. So you can see there all of the things from our infraction sheet were put into Dojo as needs work. And our hierarchy that we created is still followed in the same way when giving out negative points as it was when marking infractions on the sheet. So the next step of this, as we've said, was being very careful about how we shared this and explained this to our families. We didn't want to put too much focus on anything negative, but we wanted to be very clear about why we were giving them and what the purpose of that was. So on the left, you'll see a class letter for using Class Dojo. Their website has a lot of examples of this that you can download and print out. This is one that Shakaya and I made just because it had a little bit more information that was specific to our classrooms. But just for your information, the resources on Class Dojo are very helpful and beneficial, and they do have parent communication resources available. But what we did was explain that we were using Class Dojo, why we were using it, and what it would look like to them. So they would see positive points to reinforce the great things their kids were doing at school, and that if there were unwanted behaviors that continued after we followed those steps of the hierarchy, that they may see a negative needs work point on their child's information for the day. So we explain that, open that up to questions, and with all the messaging and story features on Dojo, it was really easy to get that information out to parents and clear up any questions that they had about what was happening. So on the right, you'll see an example of a calendar that we used in our primary grade. I know a big part of PBIS is we don't use clip charts and we don't use any visuals in our classroom for student behavior. We don't want to focus on that or cause any type of shame for any students. But we know our little kids sometimes need the reminder, and we wanted to open up communications with our families and to give our kids a little bit of accountability for our day. So we really thought through this and how to make this work for our classrooms. So in Class Dojo, there's a lot of settings for how you can see your points. So we had our students record. You can see green there was their positive points and red was their need work. And they would mark those down each day and their parents would initial each evening. And even though parents were connected to Dojo, this just got the kids, honestly, it got them really excited about the things they were doing. And we set rewards and expectations in our classroom. So maybe it was whoever got the most points that day got something special. If we reached 100 points as a class for the day, they got a special reward the next day. So there's a lot of ways to use the points in Dojo to add in rewards and incentives in your classroom. And this was really motivating for our kids. One thing we worried about was that taking away tickets would cause them to not have the motivation they needed to exhibit the positive behaviors we were looking for. But we were pleasantly surprised that these invisible points seemed to work really well for them. You can hear it ding on Class Dojo, and it can pop up on your screen if you have your computer or your iPad plugged in. And like I said, at the end of the day, we had them record their points. So they were really excited about the points they were giving, and knowing that their parents saw it as soon as we gave it to them was something that motivated them to want to earn as many as they could.
So now we're going to look at how the data looks through Class Dojo. So here, this is 3 different examples of data on an individual student within a given time. You can see that it's color-coded. So again, the green is for your positive and the red is for your needs work. It also shows the number of positive and the number of needs work. And I'm pretty sure this was for a pretty lengthy time frame. Was it for the whole year? Mm-hmm. Yes, this was for the whole year. So you can see that it shows you, it breaks down each behavior. On this slide, this is for a whole class. So for the year. Data can be easily selected to view daily, weekly, monthly, all time, or a custom date range. So if we were wanting to look for a certain time frame, you can go in and add the dates and be able to pull up data for the individual classes or even a whole class. I really liked this feature when we were looking at data for planning. This slide shows, this is a example of a spreadsheet that you can pull up. So you can choose to do the chart with the colors, or you can choose to pull up a spreadsheet. This option has great detail. It has the date, the times, the teacher who gave the point or took the point, the specific behavior, and then the award type, which I don't know if that matters, but if you look to the right, you can see award type. So that would mean like you gave it as a single point, or maybe as a whole class, or more than one student. Okay. And this is a spreadsheet, even though it's quite small. If you look at the top, that is a spreadsheet for a whole class. This is just like the individual. You can still access it daily, weekly, monthly, all time, or a certain date range. And what we liked about this was because when we had teachers go in and add their needs work from our infraction sheet that we used before, this matches it. So you'll look at the behaviors and it's still the same behaviors as following directions or respecting others. There's also, I think, dates. And yes, so it has everything like the individual, but this is for a whole class. So being the data person for our PBIS team and the school leader for Class Dojo, I have not found a feature that allows us a whole school data sheet. But we are still able to pull all classes and individual students' data for further planning and behavior intervention. We have reached out to Class Dojo, and this is a feature that they're working on. So you could have a whole school data sheet or chart that you can look at. So they are working on that, but it's still very beneficial, as in you can do classes or students. On this slide, this just gives us some ideas of how we can use this, what the teachers can do. You can share the class with school leader and specialist. So the teachers in our building, they share their class with planning teachers or speech teachers, anyone who has their students, and they all share it with me because I'm the person to pull the data up when we have meetings or we're planning. It can monitor for family communication and student needs. You can use the data charts for weekly PBIS reward and reteach. You can use the data charts for SAT meetings, for conduct grades. And this is a big one because we are now held accountable as teachers that our needs work that's on Class Dojo should match up with our conduct grades. So for instance, if a student has had 10 needs work over this 9 weeks period, then they should have a 90 in as their conduct grade. It also, parents, I have noticed that parents, they know what's going on. It's more of a communication. They can see there's notes, there's portfolios, things you can upload to Class Dojo. So it has really opened the communication and parents not being surprised, I should say, when they get their child's conduct grade. You can also use the data for class incentive and rewards. The school leader will have access to all class data school-wide. You can monitor for school-wide communication, access school-wide data for PBIS meetings, which I typically will look at it before we have our monthly meetings. Use data charts to share with stakeholders. You can use the data for Tier 2 decision rules, and the data can be used for county discipline reports. So there's a lot that we chose to use Class Dojo for the data specifically, but it's really been more beneficial than what we were thinking.
And to go off of what she said a little bit, we started this mainly to communicate with our families. And as we dug in more and used it across the years that we've had it, it's opened up so much more than we even anticipated. We showed you some of the reports there for the data, and it can really get specific. I personally have used it for SAT meetings, not necessarily in a negative way, for 504 meetings for students that we've already got in place. It just really gives us some really great information for our kids. We're a Tier 1 model school, but we do have Tier 2 in place as well. And it has played a huge role in that for us, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more here when I talk about where we are headed with this. But just from my experience in the classroom with my students, it's given us so much great information on all of our kids. And while there are negative parts of it, because the reality is that there are consequences for our students at certain times, to see that positive outweigh the negative so much for all of our kids, regardless of how little or how much they struggle, has been such a great feature for us to be able to share with our families. So if you're using or do choose to use Class Dojo, I really encourage you to really dig into what it offers. You saw the wheels for the data. You can print out the spreadsheet. You can look at their whole year. You can look at their week. You can look at their month. You can look at a specific time. Depending on whether you're doing conduct grades and you need 9 weeks, or we've used it when we put interventions into place for some of our kids to really track specifically how that's working. And I had a couple of students that I did that with in my classroom, and to be able to see something extremely concrete like this to show parents how it was working for them was such a huge added feature that we never had before with our paper copies. So it's been such a great process for us to work through. So now let me get into a little bit about where we're headed. So we had a plan for the end of our year, like I'm sure a lot of you did, about a lot of different things. Like Shikaya said, we've used Class Dojo for both positive and negative. And as I said, we are also in Tier 2 in our school. But regardless of whether you are there or not, what I'm going to talk about are features of our Tier 1 program. So this isn't something that can be far away from where you are. So we had a really great plan of where we were headed next and how we were going to roll that out during our last 9 weeks of school, so that we could really present you with some solid information and really get our program geared up for next year. Unfortunately, that didn't pan out quite how we had planned, but I am going to talk about what we have discussed as a PBIS team and what we have shared with our staff, so that we can jump into this next year. On the left, you'll see our student think sheet, and on the right, you'll see our office discipline referral. And both of these are part of our behavior management hierarchy for our students for unwanted behaviors. So there may be a point in the day where a student has to fill out a think sheet, and this is filled out with the student in the classroom, and then a copy of it is sent home so parents can have a follow-up conversation with their kids there. And the office discipline referral is the next step, which goes to the principal and then is eventually sent home. So we have paper copies of all of this, but the reality of being a teacher is that we all have a lot of papers in a lot of places. So we worked hard to keep these organized, but we thought, we're using Class Dojo for our positive and our negative. Why are we not using Class Dojo for the other pieces of our program? So our next step was getting us started with that. We've got even further steps, but I won't get quite into that. But to make it a little digital, and I have some examples here. So I'm going to use Zachary as an example because his mom works at the school and she agreed to let me upload this stuff and share it with you. So we're going to say that Zachary had a think sheet that was filled out. So on the very left, I took a picture of his think sheet, which is not actually filled out, and I added it to his portfolio. So on the very left side, over here, you will see what this looks like on the Class Dojo app. So this was accessed from my phone. It could be accessed from your iPad. And I uploaded a picture, and I added the comment that we had a good conversation about making better choices, so that his mom and dad know at home that we talked about it. In the middle there, you will see a think sheet and then a referral sheet that was uploaded to Zachary's portfolio, and that's what it looks like from the computer, from the website. So in both places, you see it. And that picture, we filled it out, that picture was sent, and now the sheet doesn't actually have to be sent home because his parents have instant access to that. And a great feature of Class Dojo is that you can see when they have read your messages. And on the right, because we have instant parent communication, you can see that I also sent a picture of Zachary's think sheet and a message to his mom. And I added a message there. Please be sure to check Zachary's folder today for a think sheet. We talked about things here at school, but a conversation at home would be a great chance for him to talk about how he is able to turn things around. If you have any questions, just let me know. So this allows you to have that very quick conversation with parents, so they know what's happening, they know what's coming, and explains it a little bit further for them. So our next step is going to be to implement this school-wide so that the rest of our paper trail can now be made digital for us. So as I said, this was our plan, but we all got thrown into remote learning. So we have worked really hard to get Class Dojo as a strong feature for our program, and we hated to let that go just because we weren't with our kids in our classroom every day. So we decided to rework our expectations for our teachers, our students, and our parents during remote learning. So you can see on the right-hand side that we created our Longhorn expectations for remote learning. And I won't read all of these to you, but you can see that we set this up as what will happen. So teachers will, students will, and parents will. And these are the things that we expected from our teachers during this time, from our students during this time, and from our parents during this time, because all three were such a huge part of what was happening for our students. So in addition to that, if we had expectations for everyone to follow, we knew we needed to acknowledge those. Just like we give out points and acknowledge our students in the classroom, we wanted to acknowledge them when they were working at home. So I have a couple examples here. I have Shakaya's on the left and mine on the right, because like I said, we let our staff pick the positive things they were looking for. So these are just some examples of the things that we gave points to our students for doing. So it was doing your iReady minutes or completing your writing assignment for the week. Maybe it was because you took your math quiz or your spelling test, or even had all your work finished for the week. This allowed our kids to know that they did what we expected, and it also let parents know that their students were doing what was expected, and it was really a great thing to add in to help keep everyone on track during a time that nothing seemed normal anymore. So on the left, I used Zachary as an example again with his mom's permission. And this is for all time. So you may see some needs work there, but that was from before school had ended. We did not give out negative points while we were working from home. But you can see there just a screenshot of what his parents would see on their end when they pulled up Class Dojo. And you can see there the points he was given. So I would go in and check their work and automatically give them points when I saw that an assignment was finished for them. This not only helped give our kids an incentive to keep working hard, but it helped us track things on our end for, we all know we had a lot going on during this time. So it helped us keep track of what our students were doing. So then we did meet virtually with our PBIS team. So we had said, okay, we made expectations and we're giving out points. We need to give them something to work for. So why don't we give them rewards for remote learning? This is something that surely we can handle. So we wanted to keep it simple because we weren't off for a long period of time. So we chose 3 things that we could maybe give our kids as an incentive. So a video message from your teacher, skip an assignment, or send a video message to your class. And we let teachers pick the amount of points these would be worth based on how many they may be giving out during a week. So once a student hit the point value, we gave them the option to cash in their points for these rewards. And it really seemed to be a great way to get our kids even a little bit more motivated, because I know this was a trying time for them at home to keep that momentum going when the year was wrapping up. So as we look forward to next year, and a lot of the unknowns, we've got a little bit under our belts with using Class Dojo during this time. So we're ready to kind of kick that off in a way that will involve all of our kids and all of our families and all of our teachers to keep our data going so that when we do get back in our classrooms, we're able to keep the momentum going and get the information that we need for our program. So we were really curious about how all this has worked. I'm not sure about all of you, but I know being on the PBIS team gives us insight that maybe the other teachers in the building don't have. We know this inside and out, and we know our motivation behind what we do, but we were curious about how this came across to others. So we reached out for some input from some teachers and parents about how they felt about using Class Dojo. So one of our second grade teachers said, "It's so easy to see student data for a variety of time frames. It's been great for my classroom and ties in perfectly to our PBIS program." Our fifth grade teacher said she loves being connected instantly with parents. And one of our planning teachers for PE and computer said that as a resource teacher, she loves Class Dojo because she's connected to all of her classes and can easily give out acknowledgements when they're with her. So it was great for us to hear from our teachers that our intention for using Class Dojo was working for them in their rooms. And then one of the second grade parents, her child had some behavior issues that we were working through. We had some SAT meetings and put a 504 into place for him. And she reached out to me and said that Class Dojo gave my husband and I the information we needed to identify patterns in our son's ability to self-regulate. Since we were able to track when and where in his day he was struggling, we were able to work with his teacher to develop an intervention plan that not only gave him the support he needed, but a support that he eventually took ownership of. The data from Class Dojo was a huge factor in understanding what our child needed to be his best self. This was so amazing for us to hear that while we naturally worry that a student who's struggling and maybe getting more negative points than others is going to feel defeated, but his parents, his parents were able to use that to help build a plan for him to make him more successful, and then to see those positive points become stronger and become more frequent for him just showed us that our purpose for using this was working for all of our kids.
And they're able to see the positive and how many positive against the negative, which there's so many more positive. And before, when we were handing out tickets or whatever we were handing out, parents didn't see that. Yes, their child may come home with the prize they received out of the prize box, but being able to go in and say, okay, well, my child had 2 negatives this week. Yeah, but he had 50 positive points, I think is huge. And I know when I've had SAT meetings or 504 meetings, having the Class Dojo data has really, I think it's made parents feel better, because we're not just sitting there focusing on the negative. Because in reality, we're usually meeting on a student due to, if it's a behavior issue, there's going to be negative. So I really think that it has pushed us as a team. It's made all of our staff seem on board. We're a school that sees a lot of new teachers. We have I don't even know what you would call it, where we're just in and out. So we have new teachers that come in that haven't been there and they really come in and they're really on board and seem to fit in and like the Class Dojo aspect. So I think for parents and teachers, it's been.
Yeah. And if you're using Class Dojo the way it's intended and you are giving out feedback, whether that is positive or whether that's needs work, in the moment, as it's happening, it's giving our parents and it's giving us as teachers really detailed information about each student's day. So for this particular child, I was talking to his mom about this, and she said it really helped us pinpoint exactly where his issues were coming from. Maybe it was a transition time or after a certain time of the day, or he had some anxiety about math, so it was happening before that. So aside from his intervention plan that we created, we were able to do some little things throughout the day that weren't time consuming. And as a teacher, you're doing the good things that your kids need because they're the good things and the right things to do. So that information that we could pull up right away really gave us the ability to do that for him and for all of our kids to make them most successful.
Yeah, it's huge when you're tracking behavior, because we used to have to get out the tracking. You have to remember to go over and mark the time. and the behavior and the day of the week or whatever it would be. So now you can just pull it up on their spreadsheet and it will tell you. So you can track if a student's having a hard time on Mondays or, after lunch or transition.
Oh, that was great. Okay. So we want to thank you for listening to us today. I know we gave you about 3 years of an adventure in a short amount of time. So if you have any questions, please get those out in whatever Alicia is posting for you, and we are more than happy to answer them for you. You also have our email there. I'm Erin, and mine is at the top, and Shakaya's is at the bottom. You can reach out to either one of us, and we will get you any answers or resources or information you may need to either continue using Class Dojo or to get that started. It's got a lot of great features. There's a lot of information on their website about how to roll it out, how to present it to your staff, how to present it to your families, and how to present it to your students. So they've really worked hard in making this very user-friendly, very family-friendly, and they've come a long way, even over the years that we've been using them. They also have a lot of resources for remote learning that are available to teachers and families right now. So please don't hesitate with your questions, and we were so happy to get to talk to you today. And now I will turn it back over to Alicia.
Thank you so much. I think one of my favorite things about Dojo is where it shows you the amount of positives versus the amount of negatives. And we know that 5-to-1 ratio is so important. We want to have more negatives, and it's a great way to keep teachers with that mindset of, do I have more positives to negatives? And I think that's a really powerful tool for that as well. So we appreciate you all joining us today. I have posted the link to the sign-in sheet, or the sign-in survey, not sheet, we're virtual. If you will go ahead and fill that out for us, we would appreciate that, so we could certify your attendance if it's asked for us. I would like to thank you for listening about West Virginia Able, and I hope that you will click on those links. I want you to all be thinking about how you can help spread the word about West Virginia Able, and to distribute any program materials to parents and families. If you need more information from that and you didn't catch a link, go ahead and send me an email at holt64@marshall.edu. If you would like to go ahead and go and like us on our Facebook page, that's a great place to keep up with the information about what we have going on next. Our next webinar will be on Thursday at 11 a.m. and Dr. Jason Conaway from the West Virginia Department of Education will be presenting on alternatives to suspension. So share that information, and we hope to see you again, and I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.